Okay. それでは5時となりましたので、本日最後のセッションを始めさせていただきます。スピーカーはですね、イタリアの方、フェリーチェ・ペスカトーレさんという方、本名らしいですね。で、講演いただくのは、The Disciplined Approach to Change という、講演でお話しいただきます。よろしくお願いいたします。それでは、フェリーチェさん、よろしくお願いいたします。
Thank you to all. Thank you for coming, and it's a very pleasure for me to speak at this great conference. This is the first time for me to speak in a Japanese conference, so it's very exciting for me. So let me share my screen and okay. Can you see my presentation now? I hope yes. Okay, so just a few things about me. My name is Felice Pescatore. I'm a business agility advisor. First of all, I am, if you prefer, a coach. I am a software engineer, but since 10 years, I'm working with enterprise organization in Europe, especially in Europe, but also around the world when it's possible, for helping them to find a different way of working, a different way to embrace their challenge and respond to the incoming challenge from the market, from the customers, and so on. I am part of the advisor group of PMI related to disciplined agile, and also have a different type of experience in the agile world and also in the traditional predictive world. So this is just about me, but it's more important to jump to the end of this presentation and to tell you about the topics that I will present to you today. And all of this is related to my experience in the last 3-4 years in supporting, I repeat that, the company around Europe, and to understand what really can help them to transform their organization, transform the way in which the people work inside the company, and looking at the real goal of an organization to achieve new improvement, become a leader in a market, and so on. Because the point here is that we need to change. We need to be ready to change, to embrace the change. And the change is not so simple. The change is hard. The change creates messy, because we are very, typically we are fear. We have a lot of fear about change, because we need to leave from our comfort zone and be ready to try a different way of working, to experiment, also to fail, because this is very important. We cannot change if we are not ready to fail. This is very true. And it's not just something that you can find in a book on the web and so on. It's a real important message. So you need to be ready to fail. And also you are in the country, in the home of Lean, Toyota Production System, and so on. So I think that you a lot of time heard about be ready to fail, be ready to experiment, and so on. But here in Europe, but generally, it's very difficult to speak with the management and say them, oh, okay, guys, you must be ready to fail. You must be ready to change your idea. You must be fast in that. It's not a so simple message, because managers, because companies want something like ready to act. But this is not the real idea about Agile, about DevOps. DevOps, we means here DevOps about the full value stream, in which the heart of our activities is the stakeholder, not only the automation part. Is just a part of DevOps, but the full idea that our mission is to create products that delight our customer. And this is very, very important. And the first step is stop doing what doesn't work. This is very important. A lot of time we know that something is wrong, but we are tired. We have no courage. We are in something like a bad company that doesn't give us the opportunity to experiment something different because we are too much focused on production. But we need to innovate, because if we want to be leader in our market, to remain, to achieve a different success, to be engaged in a different market, we need to be sure that the things that doesn't work are a waste for us, and we needed to change that, and we need to be ready for that. But it's not so simple. We need to change, we need to evolve, but how we can do that? Because this is the point. It's very, very simple to do. Every company, if you ask to 100 company, you will receive every time the same response. Okay, yes, we know that we must change because the market changed, but how we can do that? Is there a magic formula for that? No, there is no magic formula. And please don't act like these guys. Typically, when you ask to a company today, okay, we need to change. Okay, yes, we want to be agile. We must do agile, but this doesn't mean nothing. Okay, you can change here agile with DevOps. It's not so important. Sometimes these agile, DevOps, lean are used like a jargon because you can find in this word everything, because agile is everything. If you think inside your company, every company can embrace agile in a different way, and in my opinion, every company must embrace agile in a different way. And the problem here is that too much time we say, okay, Scrum is the solution, Safe is the solution, I don't know, other framework. We can create a very, very long list of framework methodology. PMP can be a solution and so on, but this is very a trap, because this is too simple to work. Every company is different from the others. Every people is different from the others. So this is the starting point. We need to tailor our approach. We need to define, to understand who we are and how we can use the all the solutions that we can found, we can learn, we can experiment, but also we must create our idea of agile inside our companies. Please, when I talk about agile, you can remove agile and change it with DevOps, with lean. It's the same idea. Actually, we are speaking about a company that are searching a new way of working, and Agile, DevOps, Lean, PMP, PMI, Prince2, and so on are all parts of a transformation for a company. It's not a good way to proceed to focus only on one of these options, because I repeat that you are unique and no one can tell you how you must work. Consultant like me, advisor like me, coach like me can help you to identify what is good for you, but the effort is yours. You must experiment. You must identify how to support your people, because organizations are made on people, not on tools. The first value of Agile is very, very important. It's the more important in my opinion, because people are the heart of the organization, and you must focus your attention to people. this is the most important things that a manager can do to improve its organization. And this is true always. But the situation today is something like this. Okay, this is an image created by Deloitte, and it's a little bit old because it's created, it's I correctly remember, 6 years ago. But it's just to highlight you how much is complex today the world of Agile, Lean, DevOps. You can see in this, you can find this image on the web without any particular query. You can search Deloitte Agile landscape and you can find it. But the question here is that how a manager, how an engineer, how a CIO, CTO, who you want, can identify just one practice to support the transformation inside his, her company. Is not possible, because you cannot know anything, every practices that you can see on that, because it's impossible, it's human impossible. You must identify, you must ask for support you from external professional people, listen conference like this about experience, and try to identify what can be helpful for you and be ready to experiment. It's impossible to start just from one thing that you can see inside this map, this tube map. And the idea is that the Agile frameworks, it's a good thing. They are not bad, but they can become a boomerang. Because if you imagine that you can read a book, follow a certification classroom, I don't know, listen every time the same people about the same topics and so on, you are going in the trap to identify just one approach that make a promise to you to give a ready solution for your transformation, but this is not the reality, because a lot of researchers made in the past years highlight that typically a framework can become, or better become very soon, too much perspective, too much rigid to the transformation, because a framework is a model. It's an abstract model about different experiment, different experience inside different companies. It's not bad, but sure, it's generic. And you are not generic, you are you. So you needed to be ready to customize, to tailor the framework. This is very important. This is the very important part. And this is why Agile DevOps is too hard. It's very hard to apply, because it's not use a tool, it's not use, I don't know, you know, a lot of DevOps automation tools, for example, coming from Microsoft, coming from open source. It's not important, but you can learn the tool. But the challenges here is to change the organizational culture, not change a tool. Because if you change only the tool, if, for example, you create an automation for the provisioning of your environment, for example, Terraform or something like this, okay, you are creating efficiency inside your development stream, but the company must support you. And this is the most important challenge. And the real data, the real number about how Agile, how DevOps can improve your business, because this is not a technical problem. This is a business problem. It's about 12%. Not double, not 50, 12%. And this is a big number. If you think about money, if you think about business, this is a very big number. And so, please be ready to escape from the method prison. You can use framework, you can use model, you can use, if you prefer, best practices, something like this, but you must be pragmatic in that. You must measure your result and you must be ready to change your assumption. In this way, you will really support the improvement of your company without promises, without strange hypotheses and so on. And a better way, in my experience, especially, is to create options. Create options to promote, to improve your company, starting from a framework. Why not? This is not a problem, but every time be ready to discuss about the suggestion coming from the framework, from the expert, from the literature, from the web, if you want, or every type of sources, and be ready to change that, identifying a different solution if this doesn't work for your, if it doesn't work for your environment. And be confident with that. It's very, very hard to do that. It's not so simple. So how we can do that, how we can support our company, how we can start with this different idea of transformation. We can use something like I defined the past year, a disciplined change. So your company need discipline to change really its environment, its way of working. Agile is not chaos. DevOps is not chaos. Lean is not chaos, because you need to identify something like an highway with guardrails to guide you. You cannot try, experiment, change every day, every time, anything. No, you must have a vision. You must have a roadmap to support you. And very, very important, you must have the tools, the metrics better to evaluate the results. And a metaphor to identify that is the anthill, the anthill. So every ant can be a transporter, a vector for an option. So every ant have the same goals to create the anthill, but every ant can transport a different tool, a different idea, different methodology to support this creation. When something goes wrong, another ant can support the holistic goal with a different tools, with a different element. And in this way, we can be fast in experimentation, but with the clear vision of create something that is helpful for the company, for our customer better, because remember, the goal is to support our customer. And this is the right goal that we need to follow, because a company without customers is not a company. There is no future for this company. So we need to be sure that our ant, our people, if you want to remove the metaphor and go inside your company, are able to propose improvement, to experiment that. You need to create what typically in literature are called the psychological safety environment. What is that? It's a way, an environment in which everyone can propose something, can experiment. Okay, you know that We can have different level of experimentation, local, global, and so on. But at local level, you can experiment very fast, something different approach, different tools. It's very important that you can do that and that managers support you in that. And when every results you achieve, failure or success, you can use that results to share your learning with your company, with your colleague inside your company. So it's to create a learning organization. And how we can do that? You can use different tools, different approaches. My preferred way is to use lean change management and disciplined agile. Why this? Because lean change management is very, very related to fast experimentation, and disciplined agile DA, it's a toolkit, it's not a framework. It's a collection of options, if you prefer, and you can select the right option in relation to your context. Okay, the challenge here is that you must be aware of these options and understand how you can use it in the right way. So DA is a toolkit, and it's part of the family of PMI from let me remember, from 2019, so 3 years ago. And he was born in the past decades, and it's a very, very interesting toolkit. It's something that can give you a list of options with the trade-off and with the opportunity to use it inside your company. Just to create a parallelism, it's something like a pattern. If you know the design patterns, I imagine that, yes. It's something like a collection of organizational patterns that you can use inside your company. And this is the idea of DA, but I don't want to tire you with this picture. It's just the big picture, the idea of a company that DA propose to the different stakeholders inside the company, and on which you can work to create a more pragmatic company, a more innovative company that can support a very fast change in relation to enterprise agility and business agility. So enterprise agility is the ability to rethink about the organizational process in a very fast way, and business agility is more related to the market, to recreate, review the organizational aspect to be more fast in relation to the market. And in this image, you can see that at the heart of this poster, you can see that there is disciplined DevOps. This is the idea of DevOps of the DA, in which you can find not only the coding and development part, but also you can see here security, data management, support, release management, and so on. Why this? Because DevOps is related to the product. So it's a way to create the best product that you can do. And you can think more than code and development, but you can think also about all the aspects related to a good product. And this is very, very important. And lean change management, it's something like, it's inspired to the classical Deming cycle. I imagine that you know it, PDCA or PDSA, if you prefer. But this image, in my opinion, is very, very important. So the idea here, how I can apply all of that inside my company. So you must create a vision, a starting change model. You can use Canvas, you can use physical, virtual board, Miro, Mural, other tools is not so important. The point here is that all the company people must have a clear vision about why we are starting a transformation, a change, and why this is so important for our company. And you can define here the first step, the second step, what you want to do the next 3 months, but this is just an idea, sure. It's not in a very high detailed way, but it's just an high, very high vision about our transformation. When you are ready to start, because starting a transformation means have the right people, have the right budget, have the right engagement, be ready to fail, be ready to change, and so on. You can start and apply all of that inside your company, creating what Lean Change define MVC, minimum viable changes. This is something like the MVP or MBI in the it's a very small chunk experiment. It's a small experiment that you can do in, I don't know, if you use, for example, an sprint or iteration, you can imagine that you can have an MVC inside one sprint, for example, 2 weeks, not more. But it's very important to have an MVC with a related metric, because you must measure the result of the change. It's not something like, okay, I think that it's better than in the past. No, we cannot have this approach. It's not a good approach. We must create an MVC and we must define 1 or more metrics. I suggest you that more 2 or 3 metrics is better, to be sure that the metric are not vanity metric, but it's an actionable metric. And after the experimentation cycle, you must measure the outcomes. Please, outcomes, not output, because it's more important what the experiment create inside your company, thinking about learning, not about output. This is more important, because I love that. So I will repeat a lot of time this idea. The company, what is really important for the company are the people inside the company, not the product, because the product will evolve, will change, will be retired, and so on. But the people are the very soul of the company. When you have metrics, you can evaluate the results, and you can decide if the option that you are trying to adopt inside your company are okay, and you can accelerate the adoption of this option, or you can go back for a new MVC if the results are not at the level you accepted when you launch the experiment, or you can go directly to the init of the process and you can review the change plan because something is wrong. Just to give you a very, very real representation of all that, I will present you in a very short way a case study. Here you see Angel Health. It's just a fantasy name because I cannot speak about the real company because there is a strong NDA about this. But what I will present to you in the next slides are real experience in a medium company, medium European company. So it's a company related to the production of medical devices. So it's not only software, it's not only IT or ICT. It's related to a physical product in which we can find mechanical part, electronical part, software, chemical part, and so on. And this company have more than 25 years of history and have market in a different part of the world, in different countries of the world, in Europe, in China, if I correctly remember. I'm sorry, but I don't know if also they are present in Japan, but it's not so important for this case study, but it's just to give you the idea that this is not a local company, but it's an international company. So we started with a radar, with a diagram, with a context diagram. This is what we did at the end of the transformation, when the company called me, okay, listen, Felice, we needed to change something because we needed to identify a new way of working to improve our company and so on. Can we discuss about this? Can you support us in that? Okay, typically when a company asks me that, I respond to them, okay, please, but I need to understand your context. So this is a very fast way, because you know that, okay, I'm a consultant, I need to give to the company, to the managers, an estimation, an idea of budget, time, and so on. It's not so simple, because like the Agile transformation, you will discover that during your activities, but you need to use a few tools to identify the very general context and give them a response about these questions. So with these tools, you can identify the situation of the company or the area inside the company that you will support. For example, in this case, you can see that there is a lot of compliance for that, because it's life critical. This company created medical devices, so you know that there is a lot of law, a lot of regulation, and so on. So you needed to be ready to be with these to work thinking about this regulation. For example, ISO. Sorry for, I don't remember the right pronunciation in English, SOX in US, and so on. And with this, you can have an idea about what is the context. For example, graphical distribution. This company have different people in Italy, Germany, France, South America, and so on. So it's very important to identify what is, create a picture of the company in the moment that you are thinking about start a transformation. And we use with the manager and with the technical people, with software engineer, with mechanical engineer, with the developers, with other people inside the company, we created this strategic change canvas. And this is the real canvas. This is a picture of the real canvas. It's a very big canvas, something like 5 meters for 4, so 20, in total 20 meters. And we work on this for 3 full days. And we create the vision for the change. And trust me, it was not simple. It's never simple to create that, because on behind of this, there is a lot of discussion. There is a lot of idea, friction between the different people and so on. So this is a very important starting point, because with this, every people inside the room, inside the company, if it's better, share the meaning of the transformation and are committed on it, because we need committed people to have success in our transformation. And for example, this was after 6 months, the results of the experiment. So you can see here that we have a product backlog, a release backlog. In this case, we had 7 teams, 4 generic agile team that work on the product backlog, and the 3 specific teams related to BI, to operation, an operation team. This was a not so good idea. The operation team, sorry, but it was mandatory, because for a specific regulation, people that create code cannot deploy them on productional environment. Okay, I know it's just the opposite of DevOps, but regulatory law created these constraints, and you cannot remove that, because without respecting these constraints, you cannot sell your product. You cannot deliver your platform. So you must adopt the right trade-off to be compliant with the low international standards about medical device. And also we create in this case an architecture team, because okay, it's great that architecture improvement comes from team, development team, operation team, but we need an holistic vision. We need a guide to create the right architecture, not only for software, sure, but also for example, for the mechanical solution that you want to adopt in your device in this case. And after the canvas, we create a involvement map. What this means? That we identify the people impacted by the transformation in different times. So here you can see in the pink area, in the core of this diagram, you can see the first people that started with the transformation. For example, all developers, product manager, change management, middle management, sorry, there is a typo inside the description, and so on. On the yellow, you see that after the first stage, the first step of the transformation, you will involve specialists, ops, and so on. So it's an idea to identify the right people at the right moment, because it's impossible to involve everyone at the starting point of the transformation. It's not helpful, and is not a good way to proceed, because you can find a lot of friction or resistance. You can find people that don't want change, and this is very a bad point to go forward with your transformation. When you start, you need to identify the right people, the right agile DevOps, what you want, ambassador in your company, that are ready to use all their energies to try, retry, experiment, support people, and so on, because they are enthusiastic about the change, and they want change, and they can also support and speak with internal people. Because, for example, me, like external advisor, external consultant, doesn't know the people in the right way inside your company. I need time to know you, but your colleague will every time know you better than me. So it's very important that internally to your company, you create a coalition, a group, a change group that will support, starting from the internal situation, the transformation, with the support of external people if you need them. And how we apply the idea of lean change management. For example, this is a Trello, but you can use any type of digital tool, Kanban tool if you want, because this is not more than a Kanban. Create different columns to support directly the transformation. For example, you have in the first one the goal, you have the metrics, the second one, the insights, what you discover during your activities, during your analysis, when you speak with people near to the close to the coffee machine, and so on. They identified options. When you are ready to use these options, so in the prepared column, introduce the experiment at this point. It's not an option, it's an experiment at this point. You don't see the other column, but there are also the execution experiment, execute the experiment, evaluate the experiment, and the fail or success, and the final lesson learned. With this approach, this disciplined approach, with this approach, everyone inside the company have every time the vision of what is happening inside your company about the transformation. And this is very important because a lot of time I hear something like, okay, but you are a coach, what you are doing? I am not understanding why we are paying you, for example. With this approach, you can communicate in a very fast way, just in time, what are your actual activities in relation to the transformation. And trust me, it's very better than use PowerPoint, documents, and so on. Sure, for example, every month, every 2 months, you can have a formal presentation using slides, PowerPoint, document. But what is really important is that you create energetic guys. You create a real results, and the real results are measured by value delivery, by happy people inside your company, by the capacity of your company to respond to customer requests in a fast way, better quality of your products, and so on. These results are better than thousands and thousands of documentation. But sometimes you need also to present your results in a formal way. For example, you can create a video, creating an interview inside your company, an emotional video, because you know, a lot of time your managers have no time to read thousands of word page and so on. So it's better to be very pragmatic also on that, and use your time in a very, very efficient way to communicate the results of your transformation. If you lose this opportunity, you can have a stop in the transformation because no one can understand why this is very important, and the results achieved from the starting of the transformation itself. So this is an example of how we used, for example, the goal diagram of DA. This is just a goal diagram. So what is a goal diagram? It's a collection of options. For example, develop test strategy and choose testing types. For example, we try at the first step to introduce the unit testing. So we define a matrix, for example, that maximum test writing time equals to 1/3 of the total coding time plus testing, reducing effort of 50%. We can measure that because we wanted to have more time to coding and less for testing, automating the testing. And we have a problem here. We had a problem here because we failed in this experiment. Why this? Because, for example, the software platform in this case was very old. We had a lot of legacy code, but on the other side, the core of this platform is very, very stable without a lot of problem and so on. So we decided to change our assumption to identify a different option. And in this case, we pass from the unit test to the system integration test and identify that this was the first useful test level for our company. For our product is better, not for our company. So this is a way in which you can use lean change with DA. And we have, if you want to use that, but the message here is that you need to experiment and to measure this experiment. And this was a result about the testing. For example, we created the test pyramid inspired to Kohn and other guru from the Agile software development environment. So we define this, but it's not so important to go inside the description of this pyramid. But this was the results of this experiment and others. It was not the starting point. This is the message here. So before you define your standard, you need to experiment and identify the right choices for you. Okay, let's go to the end of this presentation so we can have a few minutes for questions if you have any curiosity about that. So the focus point here is change requires an experiment approach and a lot of discipline. This is very important. This is the heart of all of that. It's not simple. You need to use options, standards, ideas, and so on to have success in change. And you need to be sure that what you are proposing is related to your context, not to other contexts. This is the most important thing. You are unique. And you must find and define the right way of working. And for doing that, you need every time to identify the smallest or the more important change for you, apply it, experiment it, evaluate it, and be ready to change your idea if this doesn't work. Because this is the right way to create, I repeat that just for final message, the learning organization, an adaptive organization, an organization that is ready to change itself to remain leader of its market. And this is the goal of business agility. So you can find a lot of books on change, on DA, on different frameworks. These are just 2 books related to what we discussed in this presentation in Change Management by Jason Little, and DA, Disciplined Agile, coming from PMI, but it's not, it's more close to the new, if some of you are engaged in the certification, to the new PMP, not the old, because it's very agile related. Okay, so thanks to all to be here at this time. Here in Italy, it's 10 AM, 10:30 AM. I don't know. Actually, in Japan, it's 4 PM, if I correctly remember, 4:30 PM. So let me know if there are questions, and I will be happy to respond to you now and also later. Thank you.
どうもありがとうございました。それでは、質問がもしありましたら受け付けてみましょう。まずは Zoom の方、質問ありますかね。ちょっと見てみましょう。Zoom の方は今なさそうですね。会場の方はいかがですか。もしご質問ありましたら受付いたします。特に、なさそうですので、質問を締め切らせてもらいます。そうしましたら、フェリーチェさん、どうもありがとうございました。はい、どうもありがとうございました。